This is the 2018 AP English Language and Composition argument essay. This reads, in her book, Gift from the Sea, author and aviator Anne Morrow Lindbergh writes, we tend not to choose the unknown, which might be a shock or a disappointment, or simply a little difficult to cope with. And yet it is the unknown with all its disappointments and surprises that is the most enriching. Consider the value Lindbergh places on choosing the unknown. Then write an essay in which you develop your own position on the value of exploring the unknown. Use appropriate specific evidence to illustrate and develop your position. Okay, so let's go back to the top excerpt. We tend not to choose the unknown because it might be a shock, a disappointment, or it might be a little difficult. But it is the unknown with its disappointments and surprises that is the most enriching, okay? So we have to develop our position on the value of exploring the unknown. Let's start just by kind of brainstorming some possible examples or evidence that we can use when we talk about the unknown. I talk about food, friends. You might talk about, in high school, like some anecdote that you could use, clubs or interests. And on that same vein, sports. You might try new genres of literature or film, things like that. What are some other ideas that we can brainstorm? Maybe careers, maybe people, and by that we mean different cultures, certainly travel. These are all elements of the unknown in one respect or another. So we have to determine the value of exploring these things that we don't know. Is it going to be something that is positive and beneficial? Is it going to be something that might be too shocking or disappointing or too difficult to cope with? Or maybe it's going to be both. So that would be our defend, our challenge, and our qualify. My personal feeling when I read this is I'm going to defend exploring the unknown because I think that there's potential for so many things. I might also decide to talk about some of the benefits and the risks, in which case I would qualify. So I already know reading through it that I don't think that I'm going to challenge it and say, no, there's no benefit of exploring the unknown. You should just stay in your own little cocoon and just, your bubble, don't interact with anybody. Although frankly, in modern times, you could make that argument and say it might keep you safe in terms of violence and contagion. Okay, so what do I want to do? I think I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to go with this. Okay, I'm going to have a position that there might be some risks, but overall there's a lot of benefit to exploring the unknown. It never hurts to have that although to make a concession right in your opening, and I think I'm going to do something very similar to that. So for my working thesis here, I'm going to put exploring unknown forces, or just, exploring the unknown. That would work. I'll say it forces people. Forces people to abandon comfort and complacency and though there are certainly risks involved, the potential for rewards makes exploring the unknown a valuable path to choose, or a valuable choice. I might clean that up when I rewrite. So there we go. I have kind of my admission that, yeah, okay, there might be some risks, but overall, this is really the way to go. Explore the unknown. And I'd like to outline this as a 4-paragraph response. Obviously, if you've been training to do a 5 or a 6-paragraph response, you would probably stick with that format. But if you find that you're running out of time and not completing, then you would default to the 4-paragraph response. You do want to have concessions in your argument. You want to definitely acknowledge the counterclaim. You want to have your rebuttal, but you just want to really strongly build a position for this particular thesis that it would be rewarding to explore the unknown. So let's start actually by addressing some of the risks and how that's going to actually evolve into reward. So how risk turns into reward. And one of the risks I'm going to talk about is one of the most common things people don't do. They don't travel. And I can talk about international, but even local, how people seem to have like this 5 or 10 mile radius from, you know, where they live that they travel, not counting work in some areas. And they don't like to go beyond that because it's become their bubble of comfort, okay? So some of the risks, if you don't travel, they would be that you miss out on cultural or for local community treasures. And the counter argument that I'm going to embed here is you can read about them or see them on the internet, right? Maybe you've never been to Machu Picchu, but hey, you took a 3D virtual tour. And I would concede that, yes, better than nothing, but not the same as the experience you have firsthand. Okay? So that would be the first paragraph, the response I'd have. And I'm really using a whole lot of, hey, people won't do this, but this is why they should. And they might say that this is just as good as it, but it's not, and here's why. Okay, so there are various routes that you can take with that. I do think with the same with the firsthand experience, I might use an example of language, or maybe you read about like, oh, when you go to this place, don't do this. And then you get there and that's not even accurate. You would never have known that had you not actually gone. For my essay response, I would use an anecdote. Nobody says good day, mate, in Australia. I went to Australia and they say hello. They do use the word mate from time to time as friend, but the good day, mate, and throw another shrimp on the Barbie that Americans always say, no, it's just not. Okay, so that would be something that I could put there. Body paragraph number 2. I've talked a little bit about the risk. I want to focus more on some of the rewards. And some of the rewards would be, let's see, I might talk about like how in middle school for you guys, or maybe even high school, because this is where you are, the fear of making new friends. Or for some of you, it might be the fear of trying out for a team or something like that. And there are a few things that you can build from that. Maybe you discover a talent. I'm being a little bit more broad here than I would normally in my planning, just so I can show you how you personally might respond to this. Maybe you discover a hidden talent or a hidden interest. Maybe you fail, but failure is didactic. You learn maybe that you have to, if it's a sport that you go out for, that you're gonna have to put in some more time in order to pursue something that interested you. Let's see, fear of making new friends, or, you know, I'll put clubs here. And how you can actually end up making a best friend or learning something that becomes a hobby for life, right? Maybe you took up lacrosse in high school and you enjoyed it so much that as an adult, you plan to continue playing recreational lacrosse. Or maybe you do so well with it that you get a scholarship for lacrosse to go to college. Just some ideas there. Another vein that you could pursue for the rewards, you might use a story about jobs. Okay, and maybe this is going to be another anecdote. Maybe it's a family member or a friend who talks about how their mom or dad or grandmother, grandfather quit a great job at one company to try something in a startup, and it worked really, really well, something like that. Okay, that would be another example of what you could pursue. Certainly, this idea of expanding horizons or building your skill set, things like this, improving personal experience. Again, these are purposely vague right now just to help you get some ideas, but this would be the connection that I make to whatever I choose up here. Okay. Now, if over here I'm doing travel and I'm focusing on international and local, then I'm going to say over here, I'm going to say the rewards of exploring the unknown can actually affect people on a more personal and immediate level, affecting both friendships, I'm running out of room, friendships and careers. So that way I've got a topic sentence that narrows down, okay, let me show you how exploring the unknown can benefit friendships and can benefit careers. And maybe you don't have an anecdote where someone had a great job and switched to another one, but maybe you have an anecdote of someone who tells you how they ended up in some industry that they never planned to end up in. They certainly didn't fall into the unknown just, you know, like off a cliff, but maybe someone told them about something that they would not have explored otherwise. They plopped an idea in a person's head, and that was something that would have been unknown or foreign to them that they chose to explore, and it's ended up to be something really beneficial. Okay, so you see the planning for someone who chooses to defend a position of yes, exploring the unknown would be a good thing, laid out before you. You also see how I'm interspersing counter arguments into this first body paragraph to make sure that I address the other side. I might want to do the same thing over here where I talk about how even if you try something and fail, failure itself is didactic or instructive. You learn something about yourself or about others. Maybe you learn that, hey, I didn't want to be a part of that friend group, or hey, maybe basketball is not the sport for me. Maybe you learn, hey, I don't want to become a computer programmer. Whatever it might be, that in and of itself, although to borrow from the prompt, would be a shock or a disappointment or difficult, is actually going to enrich your life. You want to borrow verbiage from the prompt to keep you on track. So please do that when you write your response. Okay, good luck. I'll see you next time.